Hi, my name is Nina Means, Director for Austin Community College Fashion Incubator, and you're watching ACCFI Presents. We are here with Angie Ramirez, who is the Head of Development at Stitch Texas here in Austin. Angie, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's so good to see you again.
Wonderful to see you. It's been such a long time, and now it's all virtual. It's all on the screen now. It's crazy. We're really glad to see you. Regardless of whether it's in person or not. But we are really looking at kind of the evolution of the fashion industry here in Austin. Mm-hmm. And I know that Stitch Texas has been around for a long time, and you guys have contributed significantly to the development of the foundation of this fashion industry here in Austin. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of walk us through, what the beginnings of Stitch Texas look like? You can
sure.
find that out, but you can, tell us more about Stitch Texas and
sure.
what, that beginning looks like.
Okay. Yeah. Stitch Texas was launched by Vesta Garcia. I think it must have really in its infancy, probably 2014. And it's funny. It was really born out of in its infancy, I would say more out of Dallas than Austin. It evolved more into what was going on in Austin, but initially, we're really fortunate in Texas that we have Dallas that really has some really impressive deep roots in apparel manufacturing. There's a lot of folks there that have been doing this for a long time. Vesta at the time had a small dress line. She and her business partner at that time also had their own sewn product lines that they had experience dealing with contractors, pattern makers. When they started developing dresses, going to production with dresses, it was important to them. They really wanted them manufactured in Texas. They made some good connections with factories in Dallas. And the issue that they ran into kind of over and over again was in the development, the pattern making stage. So they really had great connections and competencies within the factory, but there was always this kind of hiccup between, because the factory is really sitting there going, okay, we're ready, send us your finished patterns, completed with development, your materials, we're ready to put it together. But then when it came to wanting to get those production patterns, with those final tweaks of sleeve length and fit and binding construction and these types of things, that's where they were kind of running into some issues, or also maybe working with a pattern maker that then couldn't send the files digitally or couldn't send the cutting markers to the factory. And we're talking about two people that had some experience in that sewn product arena. And they were having these issues. And in fact, at the time, Vesta was here in Austin and her business partner was in Dallas, and even having somebody there was an issue. And so let alone thinking about people that maybe were coming into this cold and knew even less, right? So, and it was about that time I met Vesta. I was a freelance pattern maker at the time. She brought me on to help. They created Stitch Texas to try to fill in those gaps between the designer and the factory, all of those gaps, the pattern making, the grading, the sample making, the cutting markers, so they could go straight into that factory, right? And then as we got up and running, it was funny. It's been so many years now, it's hard to put all of the chronology together, but at some point, Vesta got involved with the city of Austin. And these talks were coming to the forefront. And I don't remember all the players. It's been so long now. I remember Linda Asaf was in a lot of those conversations. But much like what the city of Austin did to help bolster the restaurant industry by helping food trucks, right? It was sort of the city of Austin put together a program to help people to launch their restaurants in a more sort of micro way with these food trucks, and that became very successful. And so there was these talks about how could that maybe be applied to our industry. So Vesta got involved in that conversation in a big way, specifically because most of the conversation, most of the work and the action being put in place in the Austin arena, as far as our business goes, was mostly from the designer end and how to support designers, their vision, with what Vesta felt was like maybe not as much emphasis put on the skilled labor. And that was something that she felt really strongly about, was not only that we were so lucky in Texas to have some places, like Dallas, where there were these people that had been working in the industry for a long time, but also kind of aging out. And so, it was important to her with Stitch Texas, not only to help designers to feed work into those factories, to keep those factories going, but also how do we foster more of that workforce, right? Fostering, how do we get, stitchers trained and pattern makers trained and marker makers and all of these things. So she was, a big part of that also led to, a lot of what you do, which is, fantastic. And so Stitch Texas was born from development. And then there was a time, and then we kind of went into production. We got out of that somewhat, but we can talk about that more, but I would say that it was about not only to helping that process between the designer, the manufacturer, and their communication, and to get that work into the factory, but also to provide a place for those of us with those hard skills to be in an organization and in a workplace that provided us with some structure, with some security, and with some protection, quite frankly. Our business has not always been known for really protecting those people with the hard skills that all of this is built on. So, any of us who have worked as pattern makers, for instance, have probably had, it's all pattern makers love what they do. We're a very weird breed. And so we're really looking for these interesting, fun opportunities. And in that quest, often end up in situations where the demands are very, very high, the pay not very good. And not just pattern makers, that's the same with stitchers, right? And a lot of what we do. And so this was, I have been a pattern maker my entire career, sometimes with companies, sometimes as an in-house pattern maker, sometimes as a freelancer. And what I recognized really quickly working with Stitch Texas, working with Vesta, was that this was my first experience working in an environment and within a structure where the work was consistent, the work was stable, the work did not come with unreasonable demands, but also that we all really could contribute to people's dreams and ideas and businesses in a really productive way. And that's what's really important to all of us.
I love you guys, like personally, like Christopher, you, Angie, you know, all of the amazing things that Vesta's built with Stitch Texas, just a treasured soul. Really, you guys have really been advocating for these pieces that needed to exist in the industry before all these things were here. And so that's really why I was like, we have to have this conversation because you're right. You know, like I feel like, you know, foundational structures like Stitch Texas have really kind of paved the way for, you know, things like this to exist. And so as we're kind of creating, you know, these ecosystem like experiences, how we're all kind of feeding in here together. I love the story, you know, not just a story, but the effective, like, you know, this was the problem and this was the problem. And, you know, the people weren't getting steady work and, you know, let's just be real. People were getting taken advantage of, you know, like this is a part of, you know, the other side of our industry that people are like, Devil Wears Prada. And then there's like, but your clothes though, you know? So there's a lot more to that story. So I appreciate what you guys are doing there. So, you know, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us here.
Absolutely.
And we're going to get a chance to come back to talk with Angie Ramirez, Head of Development at Stitch Texas, in our upcoming segment next week. So definitely stick around. You guys are sign up to subscribe to the channel. You'll get a notification of when that new segment goes live. And we look forward to seeing you back here at the ACCFI Presents on our Fashion Incubator YouTube channel. Thanks again, Angie. Can't wait to see you next time.
Great. Thank you.